This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. We also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 11th of November 2020 and I am Miss K.
I'm Tom.
And I'm JM. In case you missed the headlines this morning, here they are. In the Daily Nation, BBI, UHURU and Raila cornered. In the Standard, season of blackmail.
Yeah.
And in the Star, Haji, Kenyans stole 224 billion shillings in 3 years. Yes, shall we begin with the Daily Nation? Let me give a summary there.
Yeah.
And it's really a summary of what they've been saying the last few days. The president and ODM leader Raila Odinga are facing a litany of demands from different stakeholders in the process. Governors in particular want pensions and other benefits added. They want, we're told here, retirement packages, generous pensions, up to about 8% of their current salary. They also want vehicles, a 2,000cc vehicle and a 3,000cc 4x4, which shall be replaced every 4 years, and so on. And so basically, just a whole new list of demands coming from these different quarters before they decide to endorse BBI.
I think they should be ignored completely. Those governors, they must be ignored. And I'll say why when I'm doing the Standard headline, but they must be ignored. Look, this document must pass before August next year, all right? Because a year before 2022, a referendum cannot happen. And therefore, I think everyone has become selfish. Everyone wants their things in that document. I think they should just be ignored completely, all of them.
So we've got a three-part criteria that we use to assess the headlines. Are they topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and thoughtful, or just plain lazy? This is very repetitive. It's also a bit on the dry side. I say we toss it.
I agree, we toss it.
Outright.
Absolutely.
So what do we have in the Standard?
The Standard, season of blackmail. As you said, there is a bunch of governors and some politicians allied to the usual suspect, William Ruto, and they have been saying that they want some proposals they have made added into BBI. Look, and I'll start with the politicians allied to William Ruto. They want this thing called GMR, Guaranteed Minimum Returns, which is such a stupid thing to say because you cannot constitutionalize markets. Have you ever heard, for example, in the American Constitution, the Fifth Amendment or so and so guarantees American corn farmers 15% of every kg sold to Yugoslavia, for example. It's absolute rubbish. But the reason they're doing this, they know exactly where they're doing this. They want to muddy the waters and ensure a referendum doesn't happen. And that's why they're introducing stupid things as guaranteed minimum returns. Some of these things that they are saying, like guaranteed minimum returns, can be introduced at policy level. Actually this year, very early in the year, Uhuru Kenyatta, he said that he actually gave KCC 500 million shillings to buy milk from farmers. What happened was the price of milk came from 18 shillings to about 38 shillings. All it needed was a policy statement. That was it. If you try and constitutionalize markets, you are basically telling your people that you are ignoramus. That's it. And also for the governors. And I think Raila and Uhuru should ignore them totally. They don't matter in this. The people that matter is the grassroots. It's the IMCAs. Governors, half of them may not even come back to office. So on what level are they going to tell Uhuru and Raila that they must put this, and if they don't, they do not pass? They don't matter anywhere. And this BBI can pass with or without governors and William Ruto, period.
Absolutely.
I think I have just one comment to make on this particular headline. And I'd like to borrow from American President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who said that constitutions should be a layman's document and not a lawyer's contract. And I think there's no need to include all the fine print that you find in insurance policies and our regular contracts, which is what we're trying to do here. And acts of parliament are sufficient. They can address these issues. And as you've said, it can go down to our regulations and our policies. case.
Yes.
Not everything must be included in our constitution. In fact, the vaguer the constitution, the better.
That being said, I think this is a catchy headline.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
maybe we'll put that in the parking bay as we consider
I
the
agree.
Star.
Parking bay.
Yeah.
The Star, Haji, Kenyans stole 224 billion in 3 years. This headline talks about a report that was handed over by the Haji's office, in which they said that in the years since the Jubilee administration was sworn in 2017, 224 billion shillings have been lost by taxpayers. And in that same period, 7 CSs and PSs, 11 governors, 22 parastatal chiefs were charged with corruption. And in analyzing those cases that were brought forth, they were worth about 3.9 billion, which this paper says is only 1.7% of the money lost. But they do note that there was a 91.9% conviction rate, a 5.4% with acquittal rate, and a 2.7% withdrawal rate. You have to bear in mind that the process it takes for you to be able to present a case before the court can be evidenced by those statistics. If they have a 91.9% rate of conviction, that means that the investigation was good and the case was argued correctly in court, and you got that. But you also have to bear in mind that the rate of crime will always be faster than the rate of justice.
That's right.
So the law will always be a little behind, and you cannot count and judge them and measure them on the same standard as the criminals.
You know, my radical opinion on theft of public funds is very radical. It's okay for governors to steal. It's okay for ministers to steal. The question is, one, where do those monies end up? Where do they go? Outside of the country or inside of the country?
And are they building
number two,
industry?
What have you done with them? Have you built industry or have you just consumed? And sometimes, and this is actually this is a fact, this is a history of the developed world. People like Sir Robert Walpole, the first Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, you know, he willy-nilly allocated himself so much public land and, you know, raided public coffers. But the thing that was important is what he did with it. And he succeeded in building industries. He succeeded in building estates and giving people jobs. And sometimes money in private hands is better spent, is more productive than money in the hands of bureaucrats and ministers. And
are you saying that the question is whether the money was used for individual selfish gains or for the greater good?
JM,
for the greater good.
Say no more.
Anyway, whom do we award the winning headline?
Standard.
I go with the Standard.
I go with the Standard too. So on that account, I will toss the Star. And on to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. We've got a 3-part criteria that we use to assess them. Are they humorous or dry, satirical, pessimistic, and effective, or just plain lazy? Shall we begin with the Star, please?
Okay, in the Star we have a DJ deck, and on the ones and twos we have our president, a caricature of our president Uhuru Kenyatta, and a caricature of Raila Odinga, who is asking for requests. In fact, he's saying, okay, bring your requests. We have then behind him a gentleman who goes Jerusalem, but doesn't make it to the end of it. The hand of Raila Odinga is seen to be pushing that request down. On the edges of our deck we have a caricature of Deputy President William Ruto and a caricature of Oledama Olekina, and the church right there at the back. And I think they want to bring requests, but I don't think this reggae is stopping for them.
It's not going to stop for them, and it shouldn't.
It's a humorous one. I think we'll put it in the parking bay.
I agree.
Shall we consider the Standard?
The Standard, you have caricatures of 2 patients, and they're in a hospital, and patient 1 is COVID, patient 2 is Wall Street. And the doctors say, finally, a vaccine that works. And the moment they said that, Wall Street was up in celebration. And I think this is with regard to the news announcement by Pfizer that they may have just found a new vaccine for COVID-19. But as that happened, COVID stocks in the S&P 500, the Dow Jones in New York, its stock price went shot up. And I was like, what's the problem? That's when you announce good news in the stock market and you're publicly listed, that's exactly what will happen. The stock price will go up. But I think it's also a little bit pessimistic on Gado's part to say that the COVID patients are still...
I think Gado is quoting Solomon here when Solomon said money is the solution to all our problems. And this is why this guy who appears to be very sick, is happy now.
He's happy now
because money is laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take the Daily Nation.
Yeah.
So the cartoon depicts a sinking ship with a bottle representing the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine floating on water, with the world resting safely on that bottle, as you can see. And the vaccine bottle is saving the world from drowning here.
I do feel that that's
hope
precarious.
at last.
It's precarious still, because the ship in which we were before was quite large, and this Pfizer vaccine bottle, this vial, is really tiny.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys. Whom do we give the winning cartoon? Which one made us
as pessimistic
laugh?
as it sounds, as a standard, Gado. I kind of like Gados.
You want us to give it both the headline and the
All
cartoon
right.
to the standard? Okay,
Yes.
fine. I
Yes.
can take the standard.
So, winning cartoon from the standard. And now, on to our final thought. But before we get there, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, what is our final thought?
And now our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled Asia's Next Giant, South Korea and Late Industrialization by Alice H. Amsden.
Alice Hoffenberg Amsden was a political economist and a scholar of state-led economic development. She began her career as an economist at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, before joining MIT in 1994, where she taught until her death in 2012. She also taught at the University of California in Los Angeles, Barnard College, and Harvard Business School.
Yeah.
This book looks at countries called late industrializers like South Korea, Taiwan, Brazil, Turkey, India, Mexico, and Japan, who rapidly industrialized by violating the canons of conventional wisdom.
Yes.
All late industrializers have in common industrialization on the basis of learning, which has conditioned how they behave. These countries industrialized by borrowing foreign technology rather than by generating new products or processes, the hallmark of earlier industrializing nations. In fact, the author breaks down the path of industrialization into three waves. The first wave took place in Britain towards the end of the 18th century. This wave, she says, was characterized by inventions, the generation of new products from a blank slate. The second wave was pioneered by Germany and the United States 100 years later in the 19th century.
Yeah.
These countries raised their income per capita on the basis of borrowed technology.
Yes.
In other words, they innovated.
Yes.
And the third wave, which is the wave we are all still in,
Yeah.
is the wave of late industrializing countries. And these countries are industrializing by learning. Learning governments compete by government intervention through the imposition of tariffs, subsidies, and regulations that promote homegrown industries and shield them from advanced economies with whom they really cannot compete.
Yes.
The bottom line is South Korea is a useful model from which other countries, such as ourselves, can learn.
That's
absolutely.
right. That's right. And so let me talk a little bit about the man who delivered the South Korean economic miracle.
Yes.
General Park Chung-hee was his name.
Yeah.
And against all odds, this man successfully navigated the complex politics of modernization, industrializing South Korea from a backwater economy to the 12th largest economy to date.
Yeah.
So General Park was both a master strategist and a master tactician.
Yes.
He was a rare combination of a visionary and a technocrat. Park organized the private sector to modernize South Korea's economy. And so the day after he did a coup on President Yoon Po-sun on the 16th of May 1961, Park arrested 21 business leaders on charges of illicit wealth accumulation.
Yeah.
The entrepreneurs were accused of illegally acquiring state-invested properties, unjustly purchasing state-owned foreign exchange rate at preferential rates, profiting from unfair bidding, illicitly benefiting from state-distributed foreign loans, evading taxes, you name it. The list was just endless.
Yeah.
And under investigation, we're told, two successful business tycoons at the time. A guy called Yi Pyong-chol of Samsung. He was a founder of Samsung, whose illicit wealth was officially estimated at about 800 million US dollars at that time. 19% of the total illicit wealth that was being called to account.
Yeah.
And a fellow called Hong Chae-son, the proprietor of a company that later became San Yong. And Kevin, you could tell us a little bit more about Ssangyong.
Absolutely.
Remember
Yes.
the Muso?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so in June of 1961, after the coup, Park began a series of arm twisting and behind-the-scenes negotiations between the state and these business leaders, who would later become the leaders of powerful business conglomerates known as the Tribals.
Yes.
And the deals they struck was simple.
Yeah.
Park told them he would give them immunity from prosecution for those crimes of corruption, as long as they supported his 5-year development plans.
Beautiful.
And so I would like to highlight in conclusion 3 lessons that we learn from this general. Number 1, nothing is more powerful than the human will.
Yes.
So powerful even that God does not control it. You have independence as to what you want to do in your own life, and you can transform it in any way, take it in any direction you want. And number 2, Park never saw through his eyes but through his beliefs, and throughout his life he sought to instill in his people a can-do spirit. A can-do attitude referred to in Korean language as hamyon toenda, or in Japanese, watashi wa dekimasu, or in English, yes, we can.
Yes.
This was his motto for life.
Yeah.
And it affirmed his belief in the power, once again, of the human will to change our personal and our collective circumstances if we so wished.
Yes.
And finally, number 3, Park pursued a high-risk, high-payoff, and high-cost strategy for modernization.
Yeah.
Unlike Singapore, he opted for the competitive as opposed to the complementary model of economic development.
Absolutely.
So whereas Singapore sought to create a conducive environment for multinational companies, South Korea under Park sought to create these multinationals themselves that would dominate other countries. And here his philosophy was nothing risked means nothing gained. I'll throw it over to you.
JM, you say those Korean and Japanese names like you actually speak that language.
You don't know that I do. How do you know that I don't?
How do you know that you don't watch them on Netflix?
you know why I like this book is his thesis that a strong state is necessary for industrialization to happen. Now, in South Korea, when industrialization began to accelerate, it did so in response to government initiatives and not the forces of free markets. And this is because industrialization in Korea was retarded by a state too weak to intervene and stimulate capital expenditure. The Korean government became cold-blooded. Farms that were ineffective, bankrupt, slow, were transferred to farms that were prosperous. For example, a company named Shinjin had a larger market share in the Korean automobile industry in the 1960s than Hyundai Motors had. But Shinjin could not survive competition from Hyundai's model Pony and the oil shock of the 1970s. So the company went bankrupt. And the government, as the banker, transferred Shinjin's holdings to Daewoo Motors. In the cement industry, the largest producer in the 1970s went bankrupt because it tried to optimize an old technology rather than switch to new technology. They wanted to use wheelbarrows instead of mechanized cars that produced more in a shorter period of time. Now, what happened? Its production facilities were transferred by the government to the Ssangyong Group, and that's a group you mentioned. That's a group that brought us Muso.
Yeah.
And the owners of this company were part of the ruling party, and they were unashamedly doing this. But the results were phenomenal. Now, the Korean state did this unapologetically because Korea was in a hurry to industrialize. What's my point here? Kenya is also in a hurry.
Yeah.
Ask yourself why Uhuru Kenyatta has used the military to fix Kenya Railways, Kenya Ports Authority, Sonko's cartoonish government. It is because Jeshi gets things done in the shortest time possible.
They also have a cheaper labor bill.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
And then they follow orders, and they don't tanga with preachers every weekend, and they have no political ambition. From manufacturing drones to guns to operating systems to re-engineering mass transport systems around Nairobi to rebuilding railways, parks, roads. Name it, Jeshi has done it fast. What was wrong before Jeshi came to Kenya's rescue? Kenya's industrialization had been retarded by democracy and the state too weak to have a clue on where Kenya was going next.
As Atolo would say, yes.
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 Shenzi. Now, look, if Israel built its biggest export, which is weapon technology using the military. If the United States military developed the global positioning satellite, GPS, which we use today on our phones today, what will Kenya build for the world? Wheelbarrows?
So well put, a case for why the military needs to be more involved in nation building. 47 generals for 47 counties. Or what do you think, Mrs. K?
I agree, but I'll say one last thing before we stop with this. The late industrialization was characterized by 3 facets of growth. So the first part was diversification or entrepreneurial decisions concerning the path of the industries to choose. So which ones do we choose? When do we put them? And what size is the investment? And you've said correctly that the protectionist government, the strong and protectionist government in South Korea made those decisions. They said, you have a big market share, but you really cannot compete. Therefore, I will make the decision to invest in a person who is better at managing this. And then the second part of the industrialization growth, the second facet is stabilization or short-term macroeconomic policies to maintain the level of economic activity. And finally, that's the growth, is the final part of the facet of growth, is the growth momentum itself. Once you've peaked, then it will continue and spiral all on its own as it is funded and I don't know what to say, propelled by the government until we have industrialized.
Ms. K, I could not agree more. And let me tell you, there's a reason why I ask Kenyans, wheelbarrows? You see, from 1963, from the independence, this country has gone through cycles of policy shifts. In the 60s, we did African socialism. In the 70s and 80s, the IMF and World Bank told us to do structural adjustments. In the 90s, we had deregulation. We had to deregulate our markets. It's only in the year 2000 that actually Kenya got on its feet and began strategizing for the long term. That's when we born Vision 2030. And now someone comes and tells us that we need to have a conversation about wheelbarrows. Now look, if William Ruto is the deputy president of this country, he's the second in command. If you wanted to have a conversation about wheelbarrows, absolutely, that is okay. However, he is a deputy president of a country that is that has the 6th largest economy in Africa, $100 billion economy, a country that has the most advanced mobile money network in the globe. Now he cannot.
That is primed for industrialization.
A country that is primed for industrialization. Now he comes and tells us that that we need wheelbarrows. Now look, he is not actually wrong, but he is in a position not to tell us that we need to have a conversation. He is in a position to tell us about we need to have a vision. The vision
to make those decisions.
Yes, the vision cannot be wheelbarrows. The vision is Kenya needs to industrialize to greater heights than even Singapore and South Korea.
We must protect ourselves because we cannot compete against those established economies.
If you are the second in command and you're telling us to have wheelbarrows, something Boniface Mwangi should be telling us, then you don't deserve to be the president of this republic. Period.
Very, very well put. And let me conclude the show on that account. On that note, today we had a winning headline from The Standard and a winning cartoon from The Standard. Yes, please toss. So as you know, in conclusion, as you know, dear viewers, I am an admirer of the military, and as I have we have seen the good works of the military. We've seen the good works that General Badi can do. And so I will leave you with a quote from a man whom I consider the greatest of all time, none other than Michael Jordan. No, I'm joking. I mean General Park Chung-hee, whom I spoke about a bit earlier. Now, he told us, we have been born into this land, charged with the historic mission of regenerating the nation. And my plea to you is to consider taking this up as well as your motto for life in your own personal capacity. And collectively, we can transform this country. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are also on your TV screens. Find us on Pang Free to Air, Go TV, and StarTimes.